Last night at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, the Canadians men's national team played Team USA in the Concacaf Nations League final. Who are kings of Concacaf? After last night's game, I think we have our answer. It's Team USA with a very convincing 2-0 win. And today, a lot of questions are being asked in our country. Why didn't Alfonso Davies show up? The same for Jonathan David. The same for Kyle Larin. One player a lot of people are wondering about is Tejan Buchanan, who was not in the starting lineup. Christian Jack of One Soccer, he went off at the end of the game. He gave his thoughts, and he talked about Alfonso Davies, who played not one, not two, but three different positions in that game last night. The Gold Cup is next, with a lot of the big names not playing. Who will be playing? And we'll also preview CF Montreal versus Nashville because they go on Wednesday night here in Montreal. It is the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. I'm Marinaro. Filosa of 98.5 and EMFC, that Joe joins me. He's coming up.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. CF Montreal Talk.
Here's the chance. They've got the goal. Absolutely incredible. Cameron Porter delivers the goal to send Montreal Impact into the Concacaf Champions League semi-final.
The sickest CF Montreal podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome on this Monday afternoon. It is June 19th. Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. Joining me, Jeremy Filosa. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm very well, Tony. How are you?
Unfortunately, not the result that we wanted, but the kings of CONCACAF for now are the U.S. men's national team, Jeremy.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, I think we all know and understand that Canada maybe has the most talent in CONCACAF, maybe has the two best players in CONCACAF, but they got to put all of that together. And right now, it's pretty clear that the United States are more comfortable playing these big games than Canada. Now, that being said, we all know, and we talked about this in the last podcast, is that Canada did not have a chance to play at least one friendly because before this Nations League, all the other teams did. I thought Canada looked rusty against Panama, although they got the win. But yesterday, it seemed like child's play for USA, to tell you the truth. They did exactly what they wanted to do. They came out strong. They scored the goals they needed to score. And after that, they gave Canada the possession, parked the bus, and we were never able to get anything seriously close to the net.
Let's take a look at the starting 11 if we can. Let's bring it up. All right, there you have it for Canada and for USA. For Canada, it's Milan Borjan with a back line of three. Kennedy with Johnston on his right and Kamal Miller on his left. Our right wing back, Richie Larea. At left wing back, Alfonso Davies. With Kone and Eustachio in front of them and Osorio in behind Jonathan David and Kyle Larin. A 5-3-2 formation for Canada. For Team USA, a 4-2-3-1 Turner with at center back Zimmerman and Richards, Scally at right back, Robinson at left back, Aronson and Musa right in front of the back line, and then Gio Reyna with Timothy Weah to his right and Christian and Pulisic to his left, and the Balogun playing at striker. That's the way they lined up, of course. And Jeremy, it was 2-0 after the first half for Team USA. A couple of, one was off a corner, of course. And you know what? The man was left unmarked. It just came in and caught everyone by surprise with a header. And if we can bring back the starting 11 one more time, just for a second here. All right, and it was Richards, the center back, who comes in and heads it home. And it looked like Alistair Johnston lost him for a second, and he came in and he surprised him. And another one is Gio Reyna with a fantastic pass to Balogun, who gets in front of Kennedy and outmuscles him a little bit and just blasts it home. And that was 2-0. And then Canada made some substitutions going into the second half, Jeremy, but the only time Canada really started to impose themselves, it seemed, with the ball and ball possession was once the United States had that lead and they just said, okay, you know what? We'll just sit back now. You guys are going to come at us and we'll put up a wall and you're not going to be able to get over it. And they weren't able to get over that wall, Jeremy.
No. And they were very disciplined, USA. As soon as they had a ball that went a little bit more ahead on the field, it took them seconds before everybody got set back. So the game plan worked fantastically. When you look at the starting lineup, there are a couple of question marks. From what we understand, Steven Vittoria was not in a position where he could start both games in a matter of 2.5 days, 3 days. So they had to make a choice. I think hindsight being 2020, you probably start Kennedy on Thursday and Vittoria yesterday against USA. Also, I mean, I understand that they were able to get by against Panama, but I think there's got to be a way, Tony. They have to find who that number 10 is going to be on this team that's going to be able to dominate, opposing teams like USA, because right now we don't have that player. They gave a start to from Toronto,
Osorio.
Osorio, okay, but he was coming back from injury. Also, he was okay, and they were able to get by against Panama. But I don't think Osorio gives you what you need to be able to beat a team like USA in the middle of the field. I think you need better than that. I think they kept Buchanan on the bench because they figured, aside from Cavallini, he's our only offensive threat off the bench that we can use.
Jeremy, and if I can, they probably thought, we got Laren in the lineup, we got David in the lineup, we got Davies in the lineup. If we put Buchanan, we're going to be really unbalanced here because we're going to have a bunch of guys going forward and we're not going to be defensive enough. So there was that's one reason. The other reason's got to be they probably thought, okay, Buchanan, we keep him fresh, we bring him off the bench, and then he can be dynamic and he can be a firecracker, and that could be it. But now that the game's over, you probably have to ask yourself, were they not better off in a 4-3-3 and Davies plays left and Buchanan plays right and Jonathan David plays striker? But, if you answer that question, at that point, if you ask, you have to start wondering, what position is Alfonso Davies' position? We know that in the MLS with the Vancouver Whitecaps, he used to play left wing. And then he got bought by Bayern Munich, and they tried him out, and they ended up deciding on left back for him. He's now made it known in the last month or so that he'd love to get a crack at left wing for Bayern Munich instead of left back. If it's not going to happen there, he'd probably like for it to happen somewhere else. He wanted to play in a more offensive role with the Canadians men's national team. And last night, he ended up playing 3 positions. On that note, let's hear from Christian Jack on Alfonso Davies after the game.
This one is a bigger question. There's a lot of concerns. He's played 3 different positions again. That's not the first time, it won't be the last. We were told before we went to the World Cup that Alfonso Davies, Andy, was a striker, he was a forward player for Canada. We were told that when he came back from the World Cup, that's not happening anymore. He's a wing back, he's a full back. He played wing back here, and he got torched. The United States dominated this right side for 25 minutes, and they moved the best player on the team and one of the best players in the world in that position to the opposite side to protect him. That's a fact. Now, there's something wrong there. There's something badly wrong. Alfonso Davies is a far better player than that. And they moved him out of the way, and then they played 4-4-2 and they played him in the left wing. It's not good for this team that he keeps moving positions. You need to find a way to get the best out of him, and right now, both sides are to blame, player and club and team, but they're not getting the best out of that player, nowhere near.
There you have it. Jeremy, your thoughts on Alfonso Davies, as Christian Jack pointed out, played 3 different positions, and by playing 3 different positions, you have to change formation 3 different times, and they did this to try and get him going because obviously the first formation with him in his first position wasn't working. The second one in the second formation wasn't working, so they had to try 3 different formations with 3 different positions. Your thoughts?
No, I mean, listen, it's been a problem from day one. When he first came into the national team, we remember, what is he? Is he a left back or is he a left winger? As you mentioned, he's stated that he wants to play a more offensive role. It seems as though every time he comes up and he plays with Canada, it's like a dog in a cage that's been let loose, because at Bayern, that's not the role necessarily that he has. And then when he comes with Canada, he wants to prove that he can play up top and he can contribute offensively speaking. But it's been hurting him, and it's been hurting Canada because a lot of the decisions he makes up top, because he wants to show that he can play that position, is, he hogs the ball. He tries to deke 2 or 3 guys, things that he would never do against with Bayern Munich, because they would never allow him to do it. And there would be repercussions. But with Canada, there are no repercussions. So I think this is a lot more on Alfonso Davies than it is on John Herdman. He's a dominating player, but his mindset is wrong when he comes up with Canada. Then, if you decide that from now on he's a left winger, the problem is you're going to have a hole there, because is Adekube, is he a starting left wing back or full back, depending on what type of formation you're playing? Are you okay with starting him every game? And you're going to have a little bit of confusion up top, because you got a lot of people that can play up top on this team. So it's something that they're going to have to decide at some point, because, yes, it's creating confusion for the player, for his teammates, and there's not much cohesion on the field when he plays with this team.
Jeremy, if you read a lot of comments on social media last night during the game and right after the game, a lot of people right now are thinking that Alfonso Davies has to play more for the team and less for himself. Now, those are some of the comments. Now, it doesn't mean he's an individual player. It could also mean that he's a player that just is taking the responsibility on his shoulders and wants to be able to help the team as much as he can, and probably feels that that's the best way to do it for him, to take matters into his own hands. But unfortunately, shooting from anywhere on the pitch is probably not the best way to go. Also, if he wants to take matters into his own hands at that point, if you are going to play a 4-4-2 going forward, you might have to consider him as a second forward, where he doesn't have to have a lot of defensive responsibility. But then again, how many national teams have superstars play on them who come to the national team and play an entirely different position, Jeremy? This doesn't happen.
It doesn't.
With other countries' national teams.
And I could tell you one thing. It's irritating certain players in the dressing room. I'm telling you from now. Okay? And we don't want this to continue. Instead of having players that are saying, wow, we have Alfonso Davies on our team, he's going to help us win. It's irritating certain players in that dressing room.
We've heard this since the World Cup. We've heard this,
okay.
and members of the media have heard this since the World Cup, and I can understand that. At the same time, I can also understand that Alfonso Davies is Canada's poster boy.
Yes, of
and
course.
There's a couple of other players on that team that would like to have
that spotlight.
That spotlight too, and so it's kind of like. Piqué Subban with the Montreal Canadiens. I don't even know why I'm bringing in a hockey comparison here, but you know what I mean? Like
of course.
Some of it could be legit, and some of it could be, other players wanting the spotlight.
For me, Tony, I'm going to throw this on the fact that he's still a young player, and it's still going to take him time to really understand what his role is and what he needs to do to make everybody around him better, because he's able to do that. He's able to do it. Now, to get back to yesterday's game, it's a disappointment for sure. But we also have to take into consideration, Tony, that we made this team made it to the Nations League final.
Yes,
pretty easily. Now, had we gone back 10 years and said we're making it to the Nations League final easily, and we lost to USA, we'd say, wow, that's pretty good. But now we're at the point where we're making it to the finals, and people are saying it's a disappointing tournament for Canada. Like, I think this goes to show the levels that we've taken in CONCACAF. People are no longer satisfied with finishing second, whereas 5 years ago, we would have been ecstatic to finish second, but we're not there anymore. So that goes to show that the program has evolved, the expectations have evolved, and that's all positive, Tony. That's fantastic.
And the expectations have evolved for Christian Jack of One Soccer. Let's hear from him again at the end of the game. Obviously, sharing his disappointment with the 2-0 loss. All right, there you have it. That was Christian Jack once again of One Soccer that was streaming the game last night. And he says, I don't want to hear of a lack of, training camp or preparation or tier one players, more tier one players on the other side. This loss was a loss where Canada's best players just didn't bring it, and Canada didn't look like they were ready to play this game. Some harsh words by Christian Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, there is some reality in there. I'm not saying it's excuses, but this team, Tony, has not been together playing big matches long enough. The reality is, in the fall, Canada will finally start playing friendlies against countries that can give them a real challenge, and they're going to start getting used to that. It's over as of right now. Okay, this Gold Cup is going to be the last tournament that Canada will have to play against formations or countries that are not in their league to get through to these tournaments. It's over. And I think from now on, you're going to start building from that. This is the reality. USA has been playing big soccer nations for years and years and years and years because they've been number 1 or number 2 in CONCACAF. This is new for Canada. They're in the big top 3 now. And as of now, you're going to – and Soccer Canada has to take the necessary strides to give these guys the opportunity to grow like that because, just we need to be in another category. We need to be at another level.
Jeremy, we talked about not the best game for Alfonso Davies. Wasn't the best game for Jonathan David or Kyle Larin either.
Yeah.
Jonathan David is a big-time goal scorer. We've seen it in La Ligue 1. We've seen it everywhere that he's played, and prior to that in Belgium. There was an opportunity last night in the box, but for whatever reason, he's trying to pass the ball instead of finishing. So he didn't have his best game either. You look at the 3 center backs, they were clearly struggling. Alistair Johnston doesn't look like he's in form right now. Kennedy was off.
He was not 100%. He was not 100%.
It was just, it was one of those nights where things just didn't work for Canada. And they did work for the United States. I thought Gio Reyna was excellent last night. I thought Christian Pulisic was excellent. I thought that Scally, the right back, was absolutely excellent. Filling in for Serginho Dest, by the way, who was red carded last game versus Mexico. And who would have thought he would have stepped up with an incredible game like that? But they have some good players, and they have a good team as well. And I'm
willing to forgive guys like Jonathan David and Kyle Larin because these 2 guys were so huge in Alfonso Davies' absence leading up to the World Cup and helping this team qualify for the World Cup. They showed up many a times, scored many a goals. So it's not going to be your best night all the time, but I'm willing to give them a pass because they've done so much in the last year for this team.
I understand that. It hurts, though, when that was the performance in the biggest game.
Yeah, I understand. But there will be others. There will be others. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of disappointment today because, the news that was circulating over the last 24 to 48 hours as to the absences of certain players for the Gold Cup has been confirmed. And now, all of a sudden, my Twitter has been flooded with messages, people saying, I just canceled my One Soccer subscription. I'm no longer interested in the Gold Cup. I was looking forward to this tournament. But now, with Alfonso Davies out, Jonathan David out, Tejan Buchanan out, Alistair Johnston out, Ismail Kone out, Kyle Larin out, there's going to be a lot less focus and attention on this Gold Cup. And it's unfortunate because John Herdman said just a few weeks back, we want to win these tournaments. We want to add some hardware. We want to win some trophies. And so now you got a bunch of guys who are saying, but.
Yeah, a lot of USA's best players will not be there either. As a matter of fact, it looks like Mexico is the favorite right now to win the Gold Cup, which will take place in the middle of July in Los Angeles. All right, okay, but before we do, there's a couple of tweets, a couple of comments from John Herdman at the end of the game. If we can bring up those tweets, I think we have the quotes here. John Herdman talking a lot about resources tonight or the lack of them. We brought a World Cup to our country and we're not serious about winning it. Next. There's another one. We left it all out there. The USA got 10 more days of preparation. That's what it gets you. By the way, when asked about it at the end of the game, Atiba Hutchinson, about the USA getting 10 more days of preparation, he felt, Atiba Hutchinson did, that the preparation or lack thereof had no bearing on the result. I understand, though, I understand what Herdman is saying. He's right. I mean, 10 more days of preparation. If you can give me 10 more or 10 less, I'm going to take 10 more.
For sure. And if I can have a friendly like everybody else had, I will take it. But John Herdman, this is not new because last week when the first question that was asked to John Herdman had nothing to do with Soccer Canada or any investments. And the first answer he gave, he went right to that and said, if we want to get serious, if we want to win, it's got to be. He was upset about the fact that they didn't get the same preparation time as other countries. And Soccer Canada needs to step it up, Tony. They need to be. You're in the major leagues now. You're going to be recognized as one of the best soccer nations in the country, in the top 30 or 40, whatever, you got to start acting like it. If other teams are playing friendlies, you should be playing friendlies too. If other teams have a certain budget, you should have that budget too. So you got to find a way, because Tony, I mean, it's not going to be, they're not going to be able to progress if they don't put what they need inside to help these guys be at their best when they need to be.
You talked about the roster for the Gold Cup. Let's take a look at it. We have it right here. All right, okay. Goalkeepers, Milan Borjan, Tom McGill, Dane St. Clair. Defenders, Adekube, Bombito, Zachary Broguillard, Scott Kennedy, Richie Larea, Zachary McGraw, Kamal Miller, Stephen Victoria, Dominic Zator. Midfielders, Ali Ahmed, Steven Eustachio, Victor Loturi, Jonathan Osorio, and David Witherspoon. Attackers, Charles Andreas Brim, Lucas Cavallini, Junior Hoylett, Liam Miller, Jason Russell Rowe, and Jacob Schaffelberg. All right, so an opportunity for some young players for sure. Yeah. Unfortunately for CF Montreal, Jonathan Sirois or James Pantemis, they're going to miss out.
Yeah, and Chouanier also. Listen, to tell you the truth, I'm happy for Zach Broguillard. We're going to talk about it in an instant, but it's going to be a problem for Lozada with Zach Broguillard and Herrera both gone. Your two right wing backs,
yeah,
are going to be gone this summer for that, or for a couple of weeks at least, depending on how well their teams do. Very happy for Brim. So we're going to
yes and no, because you can switch over Lapalainen into right wing back and keep Ariel Lassiter on left. But yes,
I agree. Lapalainen on the right. We know he can do the job as a wing back. I like him more on the right side than the left side, so it's not really a huge puzzle. But at the same time, you are losing the two guys that you've been using at that position since the beginning of the season.
And should you suffer an injury to one of those players, well, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're in trouble. Exactly. I would have liked Chouanier to get the call up. At the same time, we're not going to complain about the fact that he'll be with the team. I probably would have told Borjan, listen, man, you've played all year. I think he's also involved in a transfer. He's switching clubs. I probably would have told Borjan, listen, skip this one. We have a lot of young players coming in. So, I mean, if all the star players were there, Tony, I would have said, all right, let's go. We're going with our number one keeper. But right now, the way the tournament is looking, I think it would have been the time to give somebody else a look. Maybe a Sirois, and maybe Dane St. Clair gets the role as the starter on the team. Yeah. Maybe Sirois gets an invitation. I don't know. But I'm a little bit torn between this. It's a half type of team. You got some veterans. You got some young players that will be coming in for the first time. I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna give, to tell you the truth.
Speaking of veterans, we tip our hat to Atiba Hutchinson, who of course had a very fantastic career, wearing the Canadiens men's national team jersey, and just a
at 2-0 last night at 91st minute. You bring in Junior Hoylett. I have nothing against Junior Hoylett, but at the same time, you know what I'm saying? It's over. You lost. Give Atiba a chance, right? No.
For CF Montreal on Wednesday night, Jeremy. They're going to be back at it, of course, in Montreal, and they're going to play host to Nashville SC. Your thoughts on what's going to go down on Wednesday night?
Listen, it's an important game against Nashville, because Nashville is one of the best teams in the MLS, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. They can win, at home. They can also win on the road. But a lot of people right now are doubting and wondering. And I heard our colleague Olivier Brett ask this, and I think his question is legitimate. Is CF Montreal a good home team and a bad road team, or have they simply faced bad teams at home, and that's why they've been doing well at home? The teams that have come in here haven't been fantastic. Let's just say we'll
know the answer to that Wednesday night at around 10 p.m. Jeremy.
Exactly. So if they can put up a solid performance at home, beat Nashville, or even draw with Nashville, but play a good game, then I think that'll cement and release some of that doubt. And it'll confirm that they are a team that's a force to be reckoned with at home. They have not given up a goal in their last 7 games, all competitions included. It's incredible. 15 goals scored, no goals conceded. If you don't play a good game and you lose to Nashville, then that doubt starts creeping in, and it may cause problems for the team. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they have up their sleeve. And I think now that the calendar is going to be a little bit more manageable, I think Herdman Lozada can start putting in place, the players that he wants, the system that he wants, and hopefully start seeing, the same 11 on a few consecutive weeks. That would also be good and refreshing for them.
Wednesday night should be a lot of fun because it looks like the weather will be cooperating, looking at around 28 on Wednesday night. Wow, it's going to be a beautiful night for sure. And they'll give us an opportunity to come back on Thursday to talk about it, because by then, once again, we will have answers to that question that was asked by Olivier Brett that you just talked about. He's Jeremy Filosa of EMFC Radio and 98.5 FM. It is the Sick Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out on our Twitter feed at SickPod CFMTL. Bye for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.